Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/entitled people, where people literally cross the line because they think they're more important than others. And in today's episode, we've got nasty entitled Karens blowing up at teachers, guys. Tantrums are being thrown, jobs are being threatened, parents are rewarding their undeserving kiddos with trophies. It's wild. So yeah, sit back, relax, and try not to shake your heads too hard in today's episode. It seems like not many people have stories about their own parents being entitled Karens. So here's one about my mother back when I was in high school. So back when I was a freshman in high school, I took this typing class, and the computer teacher was a super chill guy. He was the kind of teacher that was more friends with his students, and he would let the ones he liked get away with almost anything. Luckily, my older brother was one of this teacher's favorites back when he was in high school, so when I started, I had some brownie points with this teacher. This all said, one day in the middle of class, this teacher brags about some super hot sauce he bought and loves. This was one of those crazy hot sauces that you often see people doing online challenges with. It's not to be messed with. He pulls out the hot sauce to show everyone in class. A few kids even begged him to open it and try it, and after being reluctant about it, he pours some on a plate and all of us tried a bit. Being an idiot 15-year-old, I told myself I can handle this. And while seeing my fellow students suffering from the tiniest drop of this hot sauce, I go ahead and I dip my whole finger in it and I eat approximately a teaspoon of the sauce, and boy did I regret that. As the class continued, my teacher noticed that I was sweating and really out of it. My face was bright red and this hot sauce was driving me insane. I asked if I could get some water, and instead, the teacher gave me $2 and he told me to get a couple of cans of Pepsi from the vending machine. In all honesty, I think he felt bad for me suffering like this. So I did this and I sat out for most of the class. As the class was ending, the teacher asked if I needed to see the nurse, that he would vouch for me, but I said I would be okay. Finally, halfway through the next class, the heat finally starts to lessen, and I went back to normal. All of my classmates laughed at me and mocked me for eating that hot sauce, and I just laughed along with them. When I get home from school that day, my mom asked me how my day was, and I told her the hot sauce story. While I'm laughing about it, my mother gets pissed, and not just a little bit, like she gets enraged. She starts freaking out and screaming, asking how a teacher could do this to one of his students, and she said she would give the school a piece of her mind. I just kept telling my mom not to, that I was okay, and my reaction to the hot sauce was my own fault. I thought she listened until I went to school the next day. When I got to homeroom, I'm immediately sent to the principal's office. The principal then tells me that he spoke to my mother this morning, and after about 10 minutes of her screaming at him and threatening to sue the school, he said he's sorry for what happened to me the day before and it won't happen again. My mother also talked to my computer teacher, and the computer teacher got yelled at so badly that he was not to be allowed to offer food to his students anymore. My mother even told the principal to fire the teacher, but luckily, that didn't happen and they resolved it. I did explain to the principal that I didn't want the teacher in trouble and that the hot sauce thing was all my fault for not heeding his warning. I'm not sure if that did anything in the grand scheme of things, but I felt super guilty about it. I got to my typing class and I apologized to the teacher over and over, saying I had no intentions on getting him in trouble. When I got home that day, I freaked out at my mom. She just shrugged it off, saying how nobody's ever going to endanger her kids, and that the school's lucky she won't get lawyers involved, as our uncle's an attorney. I just kept telling her to apologize to my teacher, as once again, I made myself eat that hot sauce, not my teacher. Of course, she refused, and she even got mad at me when I said I apologized, saying how dare I, and that I owe him absolutely nothing. And the funny thing is this was the third time my mom tried to get a teacher fired. Listen, why am I not surprised that this was the third time she's tried something like that? And guys, with mom being like that, I can only imagine the embarrassment she put Opie through. Like, that is a child's worst nightmare when their parent does something absolutely wild to put them on the radar. With that said, guys, some people are saying that the teacher totally deserved it because why in the world would he bring out hot sauce that hot in class and let kids try it? Guys, let me know your thoughts on this post. So I work at a martial arts school, and since I spend a lot of time at the dojo, I do come in touch with a lot of entitled people, so here's one that you'll shake your heads at. At the dojo, we have a kids training session in the afternoon. If you've never been here and you want to try out martial arts, you can just come whenever we're training and you can try up to 3 lessons for free without having to call or email first. Especially with the kids, it's pretty common that they bring their friends because they've heard about it from them and now they want to try it out. The story revolves around one of the kids who, let's call Jonas. He's been training here for a long time, and he brought his best friend last week. When the 2 boys got in the changing room, his mom came into the office to warn us. She said that Jonas's friend, who I'm gonna call Tim, comes from a very rich family, and he has a pretty bossy personality because his parents are stinking rich. They've hired 3 nannies since they're never home, and the boy is spoiled and he can basically treat them however he wants. My sensei's dealt with a lot of difficult children and parents before, so she really didn't care. The kid had his first lesson, he behaved alright, and he got picked up by his nanny, and everything seemed cool. A week later, the kid was back, this time with his mother, who I told that she could sit on our sofa facing the room we train in to see what her son was doing here. After the kids were done warming up, they start with actual training, which was self-defense in this case. I heard her gasping quietly a few times, but I thought nothing of it. Now, I also have to mention that the first priority at our dojo is to respect others and be careful with your training partners. My sensei teaches techniques in a way that are completely harmless in training, but effective if you were to use them outside. One of the kids showed a technique using Tim where you throw your partner on the floor after he tries to grab your hand, so obviously no one got hurt. Well, Tim's mom, Karen, stands up as fast as she could. She then storms onto the mats and she grabs the kid by his arm, smacking his bottom and making him cry. I'm pretty sure he's only 8 years old. She then proceeds to scream at him that he couldn't do this to her son because he would hurt him. My sensei just walks over to her and pries her hand off the child's arm and told her, polite but ice cold, to leave the dojo right now. She left without her son and she called the nanny to pick him up. Yesterday, Jonas's mom told me that she's banned Tim from ever coming to their house or talking to Jonas again. I asked why, and she told me that because after that, Tim's mom made her responsible for all the terrible things that could have happened to her poor child in that vicious and dangerous training. She also left a negative Google review saying that our place is a place of violence, but we managed to get it removed because it was purely insulting. Imagine that, putting your child into a martial arts class only to freak out and complain that he's put into dangerous training. Like, where is your brain, Karen? Like, it's baffling how some people think, isn't it? And guys, what's even more baffling is the next Karen who constantly harasses OP for being a female martial arts instructor. Listen to this. So I taught martial arts several years ago, and I've seen my fair share of entitled people. However, this lady and her kids are forever burned into my brain. I taught at a regular studio, but on the side to market the studio, I would run a 6-week after-school program. In the program, I taught forms. There would also be a couple of days of sparring and board-breaking basics. Now, a lot of these parents came in thinking that their kids are gonna be these MMA cage fighters. Looking back, I think the most entitled parents were the ones that put their kids in that program. I was just starting a new session when this woman, the Karen, brings in her two sons. One's about 6 years old and one's about 12-ish years old. I greet them and I say, "Hi, I'm Courtney. Welcome to the Parks and Recs class. What are your names?" Karen says, "So, where's the instructor?" I respond, "I am the instructor. I teach over at so-and-so martial arts studio on this street." Karen then says to me, "Well, I was expecting a man. We really want a man to teach our sons." She then turns to her kid and she tells them she probably fights like a girl. And while this was very annoying, I thought maybe the kids would be okay. Or maybe she was just brash, but I was wrong. The 12-year-old on day one wanted to spar me. His mom was telling him that since I'm female, that he could take me in a fight. I just told him that isn't what we're going to do, and that we would spar later in the class session once everyone learns the basics. I also invited Karen to stay to watch the classes, so I can ensure her that I was capable and a very qualified instructor, thinking that this would put her mind at ease. Well, for the next 6 weeks, I had to deal with the fighting like a girl comments or where's the male instructor comments. I ensured her that while we do have male instructors, I'm the one that runs this program. And at our studio, there's a teaching rotation, so everyone gets an opportunity to teach. However, I'm the one that oversees the other instructors. Oddly enough, these new folks were also recommended by Karen, and they signed up at our studio. On their first day, they all walk in together, the new family being a woman, 2 sons, and an older sister. I greet them like I would any student, and I ask for information to set up accounts. I'm getting things squared away when Karen makes the comments that I've heard time and time again. Karen says to the new family, she's the instructor. I bet you boys could take her. She hits like a girl. At this time, I was very much over her comments. I get it the first couple of times, but it does get old quickly. So that's when I said back to her, "Ma'am, I have a waiver that you can sign if you'd like, and we can spar. I can assure you I don't hit like a girl." She declined and she laughed it off, saying that she was joking and how I can't take jokes. I thought, fine. And the thing is, her youngest son was the sweetest, kindest kid. I really enjoyed teaching him, and I think he would have gone far if they would have stayed with the studio. However, the 12-year-old was an entitled kid. He had a chip on his shoulder, thinking he was owed the world. Over the next several weeks, I would only pair this kid with male opponents because, in Mom's words, there was no point wasting his time and energy fighting girls. Finally, tournament time rolls around. Karen approaches me and she asks about trophies. At our tournaments, we have gold, silver, and bronze medals. That's it. She starts to demand that we start giving out trophies. I just told her that while some studios and larger tournaments do have trophies, we don't provide them at this time. This is when she demands that we present her kids with trophies that she planned on buying for them to display. I told her that I'm absolutely not gonna do that. This is when she said that I was crushing her kids' hearts. Eventually, I just tell her, "Ma'am, for the last time, I'm not presenting your sons with a trophy. It's not fair to others who have worked just as hard. If you want to give them trophies on your own time outside of this tournament, you can do that." Anyways, Karen and company roll up to the tournament and her 12-year-old son loses, surprise, surprise. She brought those trophies with her and she gave him the biggest, tackiest, gold plastic one she could find. She then left us a bad review and she dipped from the studio. We never saw them again, and I don't know what happened to them. I hope they found a sole male instructor, and I hope the younger son kept up with it. And I hope he hasn't adapted the same attitude that his parents and older brother have. I don't teach anymore, but I do have a lot of good memories. But man, some parents, am I right? I think we can all agree that OP was so patient with that Karen because after a few times of those insulting comments, especially to others, I would have lost my mind, guys. Like, how dare you be so openly rude? And don't even get me started on that trophy she presented to her kids when they didn't deserve it. Like, those are gonna be some hella self-entitled adults. And this person comments, this kind of entitled attitudes from parents is exactly why I gave up on teaching. I had one parent complain in my self-defense course because her child asked how he could get stronger at home, and I told him push-ups would help. She decided I was trying to brainwash her boy into joining the military. And what's worse than those parents are the parents that don't parent their kids and let them run wild. Listen to this next post. I was a swim instructor once upon a time. I did all ages, from infants through high school. If you dropped me in the water with up to 10 kids, everyone had a safe, fun time. In all the years I did this, I had exactly one kid who posed a problem. This kid couldn't swim more than 2 feet, and he could not tread water. The kid was the same age as the other kids in his class of 8 students or so, around 8 years old. The kid would also not follow the rules. When we were working on jumping into the pool, the kid would not wait his turn. Not only that, but he would yell cannonball every single time. Now, this is dangerous because I only have so many arms and I was catching someone else. We would practice going up and down the ladder and the kid would run behind my back and jump in. Practicing going hand over hand along the wall, the kid would crawl over other kids, pushing their faces into the water and going the wrong way. He would push off from the wall, start to struggle, I would pull him back, and the kid would do it again. He was a distraction, a danger to other kids in his class, and a danger to himself. It got so bad that at one point, I had him get out of the pool and sit with his back against the wall and told him to stay there until I got back. I took the kids through the rest of the drill to the end of the pool and back, which took maybe 90 seconds. It wasn't safe to have him in the deep end. I then invited him back into the pool for the rest of the lesson. And for the next 20 minutes, he behaved perfectly. He listened, followed every rule, he stayed with the group, he didn't let go of the wall when he shouldn't, no more rogue exploration or sneaky jumps. The situation was resolved. End of the matter, the end, or so I thought. After that lesson ended, and before the next class started, the pool director asked me to follow him to the bleachers, where the parents could sit and watch the lessons, where I met his furious mother, seething in cold anger. With narrowed, unblinking eyes, she hissed at me and said, "Never, ever do that again. The only people allowed to discipline my son is me and his father, understood?" I just told her that the safety of her son and all of the other students was the most important thing. If her son needed to follow the rules, period. And if she wanted to talk about it, there was one more class that day. After that, I had all the time in the world. Mom just walks off scoffing at me, and I taught my next class. The boy never came back. So here's some backstory. The dance studio I go to has an attendance policy. If you miss too much class, you don't get to be in the spring recital. As most studios, there's also tuition. Tuition payments don't guarantee ability to perform. And now for the full story, which happened a couple of years ago. I had a classmate who we'll call Tiffany, whose parents allowed her to do way too many extracurricular activities. She had 4 dance classes, whatever sport was happening seasonally, pageants, and any other activities you can think of. As a result, she often had to leave dance class early. She would arrive late or not even show up at all. She's an excellent student, but the amount of class time she was missing was showing. Anyways, the recital was coming up, and she didn't know the dance as well as the rest of the class, and what she did know didn't look as good as it could have. The instructor, who let's call her Melanie, discussed it with the studio owner, and together, they both agreed to take Tiffany out of the dance. Enter her entitled dad. During rehearsal, the guy storms backstage and he demanded to know where Melanie was. When Dad found Melanie, he grabs her arms, pulls her out on the stage, and he begins yelling at her. The guy just went on and on how he pays way too much money for Tiffany to not be in the show. I just remember standing there with all the students just horrified, while he was ranting about how the money he paid for Tiffany's dance classes entitled his daughter to perform in this dance. Someone's mom interrupted from the audience. Now, I don't recall exactly what she said, but it was something to the effect of, "Don't you yell at her, we pay too much money to sit here and have to listen to your nonsense." The dad got quiet after that, and Melanie reluctantly agreed to put Tiffany back in the dance. Tiffany's spot was changed, so now she's in the back. It was insanely awkward though. When any of us see Tiffany's family, we awkwardly pretend nothing happened. It's occasionally brought up at the studio on quiet nights. So I work in kid education, and not a school. We teach them programming, skills, all that jazz. I have a lot of stories to tell, but I think today was a good enough one, if short. And here's some quick info. The place I teach in has big windows on the walls between the classrooms, and a wall between the classrooms and the hallway. One class is roughly 10 students. So I'm teaching class and everything's going well. The kids are focused and we talk and joke a bit as well, and that's when Karen suddenly comes in the hallway. Now, we normally forbid parents from entering the classrooms during the class because we strongly advocate for kid independence, aka letting them experiment without parents breathing down their neck. So Karen's in the hallway and she starts to peer into every single classroom to locate her kid. She finally finds him in the classroom next to mine, which is the only room to not have direct windows into it from the hallway, just the door, which is closed. So the only way to see inside of that room is through the wall in my room. Karen can't wave to her kid, so she decides to enter my classroom to then start waving at him in the middle of my class. And she's disturbing it quite thoroughly. She's yelling, "Hi," and kicking the kid's bags around as she paces. Now, I rarely deal with entitled parents because I don't tolerate that BS in any form, and I can have a bit of a short temper. My kids also know how little BS I take, and they all like that with me, the rules are clear-cut. So they know what's about to happen, and they all look at Karen with the look of, "Oh, she's gonna get it." I cough once to get her attention, and as she turns around, I stare her down like the rude fool she is. And that's when Karen says, "What?" Me, in a calm level voice, then say, "Ma'am, in case you failed to notice, I'm teaching a class, so you need to return outside." She then argues and says, "But my son is in that classroom and I wanted to see him. I need to get a video for his uncle to see. Your class can wait." And hearing her say that, I couldn't believe it. I respond and say, "Ma'am, the children I teach are capable of understanding such clear and simple instructions easily enough. Are you not able to do the same?" As I say this, I point to my kids, and they're all holding back laughs. Karen then says, "Yes, in a minute, I have to video my son." I just cut her off, making her glare at me. And I say, "Ma'am, your son isn't the one interrupting my class. He's following his own class. I've asked you to get out because your presence disturbs my class, and you will leave now. No video." At this point, my kids start laughing because they understand that now, in that very special tone means they're pretty much screwed. And the next step after this is me calling their parents. In this case, it would have been me calling my manager, but Karen finally got the hint and she left the room. But not before telling me that she would talk to the one in charge about my conduct in my class and my education skills. At which point, I just turned to the kids with a big smile. She did report me for being rude to her, but I didn't get into any sort of trouble. My boss did tell me how Karen got a second lecture from him about how parents are not to enter a classroom unless it's an emergency, and to video record her child is not an emergency. The nerve of her to report OP to try to get them in trouble, right? Like, some people truly believe they're the only ones who matter in this world. Oh, don't worry, it's okay for me to disturb this class. I'm a parent. Who cares about the other students? And speaking of not caring about students at all, guys, this last OP, oh my goodness. Remember when I said a child's worst nightmare is a parent embarrassing them at school? Imagine your mom following you to college, and your mother is a relentless Karen. So I have an almost endless supply of entitled people stories because I've worked in advising at a very expensive private university. So let me tell you about one Karen and her super embarrassed son, who we'll call Phil. Now, Karen was the ultimate helicopter parent with no boundaries whatsoever. In spite of living cross-country from the university, she came to orientation, and she moved into a hotel on the edge of campus for the entire first semester. There was not one meeting or event I ever held that semester that Karen didn't try to crash. It started during orientation. She escorted poor Phil everywhere, and she demanded her own name tag that said Phil's mother on it, so she would be led into orientation events. When we wouldn't make her one, she went to Staples and she got them to print one for her. She threw 16 kinds of fits demanding her own university ID that would allow her access to the dorms, which was massively against every policy we have. She even tried having Phil claim that his was lost so she could get a second ID of his. Apparently, the concept that we would deactivate the lost one escaped her. The house manager of the dorm had to tell her to leave and stop beating on the door to be let in every morning. She also demanded a university email account so she could directly access our learning management system. We declined, and access is granted by a list anyways. She then went to the help desk, and she threw such an epic fit about needing to keep an eye on Phil's work that the campus police had to escort her out. It must be absolutely exhausting to be Karen. She also showed up at the first advising group meeting, and every single one thereafter, insisting on coming along to the dinner I was taking them on. I tried my best to tell her that wasn't happening, students only. She then went on a screaming tirade about how much money she spends on tuition and how dare I separate her from her baby. She said that he had never been anywhere alone before, which I completely believe. She literally followed us to the restaurant and grabbed a spare chair, and she pulls it up to the table where my group was seated. She tried to order food for Phil herself, and the second the server came to the table, I informed the server she wasn't with our party. I asked if she could please be removed as she was very much unwelcome. No one else brought their mother, and poor Phil was completely mortified as she was kicked out of a popular local restaurant, screaming the whole way. The first advising meeting, where we registered the students for classes, was a real trip. She of course showed up with Phil, and she throws a screaming fit that he hadn't gotten into a very popular class that was lottery only. No freshman ever got into this class. It wasn't going to happen. I also don't take advising meetings with parents present, not even on the phone. So this whole fit about the lottery class happened in the lobby of my building, which was awkward. I eventually got Phil registered, but back at my door he was half an hour later. His mom didn't like what he picked, and he was told he needed to change his registration, which I couldn't do because we already submitted it. The whole time, she's standing outside my office door screaming at me for being a stupid bitch to let him register for the class I did, and he'd never get into a good grad school with such a stupid course on his transcript. We went back and forth, and the screech she let out at the end could be heard 3 buildings away. She additionally wanted me to get him into a physical education class immediately that hadn't even held registration yet. The crazy lady was screaming how he needed to take fencing outside my door for 20 minutes while I tried to register another student. She eventually got asked to leave. She met the campus police again for like the 20th time. Every single time, she would loudly yell at them that she was just standing up for her baby boy. Another event I took the crew to was a baseball game. Sure enough, she tried to RSVP. I informed her, students only. And that's when she informed me that Phil wasn't allowed to go without her, so there'd better be a ticket for both of them. She showed up anyways, and she throws another fit, and she rips a ticket out of one of the other kids' hands and took off with it. It was a sold-out game. I didn't have extras. I don't know how Karen thought this would end, but I'm a season ticket holder. One quick call and that ticket was cancelled, and a replacement was waiting for us. I was later told by my season ticket rep that she threw quite the fit at the gate when her ticket didn't work, and it was reported stolen/reissued. Phil never did join the rest of us in the stands. Of course, she tried to follow poor Phil to classes and showed up to professors' offices to yell at them about assignments and grades. I didn't see any of that myself, but word got around. I don't believe she was ever arrested for any of it. Campus police don't like to do that with parents, but everyone in the administration knew her. Everybody. Karen eventually went home, and according to Phil, the hotel was sick of her crap and they wouldn't extend her reservation any further. I can only imagine what a nightmare she was to them. Apparently, that was enough to get her to leave for good. Poor Phil never quite lived down the horrid reputation he got as a result, but at least he escaped her at last. Phil turned out fine, by the way. He graduated, has a good job, and not much of a relationship with Karen anymore. Gee, I wonder why, right? Like sometimes you think your parents are a bit helicopter-ish, and then you hear something like this where it's next level. And I honestly wonder how Phil didn't die from embarrassment. Like having your mom be escorted 20 times off campus by campus police. Holy moly. Guys, let me know your thoughts. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our /malicious compliance, where Opie tells a wild story of his ex-Karen wife trying to screw him over, and he gets the last laugh. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.